And welcome to the Inside Drive, episode 15. Got a very special guest today that I'm excited to sit here and chat with. But first, before we get into that, got to mention my two big sponsors, Golf Plus. Alan Watson does a fantastic job, only really club repair and fitting facility in the area with the launch monitor and everything you could possibly want to get fit for a new set of golf clubs. And as I always say, fitting is the most important thing you can do if you're trying to get better at the game of golf. Everybody has a unique swing. Obviously, you can visit golfwithjay.com anytime as well. But if you want to get the most out of your game, head over to Golf Plus, located in the Edgewater Shopping Plaza. Appreciate them also donating the NFL golf ball display, which Matt Durham won last Thursday. Congratulations again to Matt. But again, go check out Golf Plus. It's about to be that time. I think next week we're supposed to see some morning temps in the 50s. So October, November, my favorite time of year to play some golf, even though I haven't played golf in a long, long time. But if you want to get a little bit better, head over to the shops at Edgewater, right there next to Firefly. You give them a call at 850-249-2726 or go online at golfplusretail.com. You can book your appointments and your fittings, and you can even use their simulator. You can rent it by the hour. So if it's raining out there, which doesn't seem to happen very often anymore, you can still get a round of 18 holes of golf in. And of course, you can also play lots of different courses that you may never be able to step on with, playing real golf. And then, of course, Panhandle Credit Union, as you guys know, the quality relationships they have with our community is what Panhandle Credit Union is all about. Whether it is sponsoring an event, donating to a cause, providing loan options, or setting people up with great banking products, Panhandle Credit Union is here to serve those who live, work, worship, or attend school in Bay and other surrounding counties. Together, Panhandle Credit Union builds community. Visit panhandlecu.org or swing by any location to join. Also want to give a shout out to American Charlie's and our American Charlie's Athlete of the Week, who won the $50 American Charlie's gift card. That is wide receiver cornerback Darren Elder for the Arnold Marlins, who had a big homecoming win this past Friday over the Walton Braves, 28-21. Darren recorded 2 interceptions. His first interception ended up being a pick six to put the Marlins up 7-0, and then he also added 3 catches for 30 yards and a touchdown. So a huge game for Darren Elder on the way to the Marlins victory. I already gave his gift card to Coach Griff, so I don't need to get his address, which is nice. But I'm excited to have this Bay County legend in the studio with us today. My good friend, Coach Glenn Manley. Probably everybody who watches or listens to this know who Coach Manley is. Coach Manley, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm blessed. I got to give a shout out to Golf Plus. Jerry Hicks is the one there that takes care of me all the time. I'm in there at least once or twice a month on something. So, short people have to get everything fixed,
Yeah, and speaking of that, that's why fitting is so important because everybody's, different size, different wrist height to the ground, but having your golf clubs fit to you will make that game just a little bit easier.
It does. And, Coach Moon and I usually play 4 days a week, sometimes 5 days a week.
Still rocking and rolling?
Still rocking and rolling. We're out there usually the first tee time, so we're gone. So we don't.
You guys are done by 9 o'clock.
Yeah, it's 9 o'clock because we've been hunting for golf balls. So usually it's 8:30, so we're there. And we came in one day a little late, and they go, well, "We had to send somebody out for you guys."
Somebody to push you guys along.
I know it.
Who usually wins those matchups? You or Coach Moon?
It's split 50-50.
Gotcha.
Coach Moon and I have been coaching together over 28 years.
And playing golf since I've been here.
I was a golf coach in the 90s at Bay High, and then in the 2000s he took over. And, so he did, he said, I just followed your plan, but he became, a lot better than I was because, I came after Rick Whitehouse and some other people, but great place to play out there at Bay Point.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's in good shape now.
Absolutely. So. I would hope so. I mean, the weather's been perfect for growing grass, but finally got some rain this past weekend, a desperate rain that we needed, that's for sure. Coach, I'm just going to kind of talk about a few topics with you here, and then we're going to dive into one of the things that I witnessed this past weekend was I've been in youth sports for a long time, but what I saw this past Saturday, I'm not going to name any names, any programs, but it was just absolutely wild behavior, and I don't know what we're going to be able to do about it, but something has to be done because, like I said multiple times at that game, it should always be about the kids, not the coaches, not the parents, not anybody else. Youth sports is designed for the kids. And I mean, and they're supposed to teach them life lessons and all that stuff. And what are we teaching kids if we're not doing it the right way?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. So, but the thing is, it just takes a few bad ones to turn the tide. I guess the squeaky wheel gets the grease, I guess.
I guess. But yeah, you kind of said that before the show as well. All it does is take a couple bad apples to, kind of ruin an entire situation, and it kind of overshadows the ones that are doing it right and all that stuff. But real quick, Coach, tell us about your long, legendary history with Bay County Athletics.
Well, actually, it started like in 1972 or 3 when I was in the military. I was riding with one of my buddies who we both played on the fast pitch team at Tyndall, and we just got through practicing over there behind Millville. There was a baseball or softball field there, a little league field.
Gotcha.
And so as we were getting ready to leave, there were some kids coming in. They were all dressed out and they had on their pads and helmets. And then so they came in, and this guy came in, and there was 2 of them. There was about 35 kids out there, and he said, "You guys know anything about football?" And we both went, "Well, yeah, we played in high school and college." And so he said, "Well, I need some assistance." And so the other guy was not interested. And I said, "Well, you know what? I'd like to try that." So I became one of the coaches at the Springfield Millville Matadors and played in the old Pete Edwards Field in the Snapper Bowl. And then, after the Air Force, I went back to college. And when I came back down here, I actually came down here to visit some people in the Air Force. And I actually got a job at St. John's. This was like 1975, I believe. And so I ended up coaching football at Jenks while I was teaching at St. John's. And so then in 78, I went to Jenks and started coaching. I was assistant football and assistant basketball. And then in 79, I took over the basketball job until 85.
Wow.
When I went to Bay High, and I was at Bay High from 85 to 2012.
Man.
So coached a little bit of everything.
Yeah, no doubt.
The only thing I wasn't good at was the rhythmic gymnastics. Me balancing on that little ball and all that, twirling the ribbons wasn't too good. So
I'm sure there wasn't a demand for you to be coaching that either.
No, but that was actually a sport one time. It was only like 4 or 5 schools in the area that did that. So, try to get
very, very cool.
Out.
And it's so funny. Most coaches, like yourself, it's this one little moment in time. You were somewhere, someplace, and then boom, you say, "Yeah, I'll give it a try," and then the rest is obviously history.
One of the other things that happened too, we came to a football game. We just happened to see the lights on. We were riding through. We were going to go to the beach. We go, let's go to the beach. Let's go. It's a football game. So actually, it was a Rutherford Bay High game, and there were so many people there. We had to stand on the track. Mm-hmm. And I remember talking to my buddy, going, "Man, this would be great to be in this atmosphere." I ended up coaching in 25 of those, so
wow.
It came
That's
true.
Awesome.
So,
That's awesome.
And I've always loved actually Bay High and Jenks, and Panama City is just fantastic. What a great community with all the people.
It really is a great community. I mean, I always say that we were brought here for a reason, and the biggest reason is just the community and the support and the love it has for all the people in Bay County. It's a special place. It's a unique place because of the way everything kind of works with the tourism and the business and the industry we have. But certainly a wonderful place to live, no doubt. You also had a college football career as well.
Yeah, I actually was at Middle Tennessee, and I managed not to go to class for a while, and so that was during the draft. And so that was one of the things I won. I won the draft, but luckily I joined the Air Force. But that's the first place they sent me, was overseas. And as I came back and finished in the Air Force and went back to college, and like I said, I came down here, but I went back to and I actually got a year of eligibility back. So I ended up being one of the punters and the field goal kicker and things like that. So it was great. And then I've been coaching and teaching kickers and long snappers for quite a while. I still do it on the side a little bit, and it's fun. I can't kick it anymore. I know early on in my career, I'd get out there with them and do things. But as I got older, I think if I did one now, my leg would fall off. So, but it's been a great career. It goes by fast. Yeah. I can't remember saying, in 10 more years I can retire. I've been retired now 8 or 9 years almost.
So, yeah,
excuse me, along that 11 years. I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of remember when you did retire, Because then you made the move to, do what a lot of retired people do, and that's play as much golf as you can.
I did, yep. So,
and here you are still doing it.
Yeah, I am still playing. That's good.
Awesome.
Yep.
Which is awesome. Speaking of the kicking, how similar is kicking, to the golf swing?
It's almost everything has techniques to it.
Yep.
And so, Coach Moon is funny. He's saying, "I listened to you so many years, I can teach kicking." So, but there's a way to do things, and like I say, it's almost like the golf swing. On impact, everything has to be the same as for just about everybody. And if you're a soccer kicker, which when I first started kicking, I was a straight-on kicker. And then when I was in the 9th grade, we played a team and had a German exchange student, and he was a soccer kicker. So man, that looks neat. I want to try that. So I got with him, and he said, well, every Sunday afternoon we play soccer over. If you're from Nashville, you know where Centennial Park is.
Gotcha.
So I went over there, and about 4 Sundays rather. I ended up learning how to do that, and then when I went to high school, my coach was a big NFL guy, and he didn't like the soccer go-glack looking thing. So I would start out standing straight, and then right before they snapped it, I'd move over and kick it. So he used to get mad, but one of the other coaches would go, well, he's making it. What do you care how that looks like?
It's kind of like the golf swing. As long as you're getting that club back square at impact, right. It doesn't matter how it gets there. That's why you see so many different unique swings.
When you start kicking distance-wise, your plant foot, no matter where it is, a relationship to the ball, because everybody is taller or smaller, or it still has to be pointed in the direction that you want the ball to go. And so, when I'm watching them, if they miss, I watch where their plant foot is, or if they're landing on their heel, or if they're landing on the toe or the flat foot. So it's a lot of things just in there, but it's not automatic because somebody has to snap it.
Yeah.
Somebody has to hold it and put it in the right spot.
The process has to be perfect in order for it to happen.
Right, and that's why you practice. And so we used to make them come out 5 or 10 minutes early, the holder, the snapper, and the kicker, and you're out there by yourself.
Yep.
And that's boom, 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 and every once in a while I'd time it. And then the drills we would do when we would do full contact was we would put 2 tackling dummies on each side of the holder and the kicker, and if you could touch the dummy before you kicked it, then we counted it blocked, because you don't want to run in your kicker in practice.
No
you know what I mean? So anyways, things like that, and then you can get really involved where you don't put anybody there, and he's right by the center, and they put the dummy over there, and he snaps, and the guy has to touch the dummy before you kick it. So that practices catching and kicking it real quick and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things, but I have to give a shout out to Jay. I've watched some of his golf little lessons, but his ball seems to travel a lot further than mine does when I'm in the same hole he's hitting on.
So, as you get, a little bit up there, it becomes tougher to generate that club head speed.
Yeah, but no, it's a lot of technique, especially with punting too. In punting, you have an explosion point, in which that is where the maximum velocity where your foot hits the ball, because if you move it up or down, you get different velocities. And so those are some of the things I try to teach.
And you're still working with kids in the area locally?
I am some, yes. And I've even, I've had them in Dothan. I've had them over in Sneeds, and, so things like that. I don't usually charge.
That's awesome.
I don't charge here. I've been to camps where you can do that. And but if you go and get somebody that's going to teach you how to kick, make sure they video you so they can show you, because I can tell you all I want to, but if you don't see it right there in front, and I use my phone for all that, and I even send it to the kids after I've gone home, and I just put a little statement with them, and they can look at it and tell them what to practice.
Yeah, reinforces it. I mean, the technology has certainly gone a long way with, not just golf, but football. Every sport, and being able to see what's happening is.
And now if you go to a football game in high school, they have drones, and they go over there and watch it right then.
Instant feedback.
It is,
which is certainly good. This is maybe a tough question. What's the best football team the county has ever had? I know you've been around for so long, so what would your opinion be on the best?
Wow, there's been a lot of them. I would guess, to me, of course, I'm a little prejudiced on this little
Which
statement.
Is fine.
But there's only one state championship football team, 76 Bahia Tornadoes. And what makes that unique is back then, only the first place team in the district went.
Gotcha.
So
it's
you
a
only
lot harder to make the playoffs.
harder to make the playoffs, and you only had to play 3 rounds because there's not as many teams involved. So if you won 3 games, then you were state champions. And they happened to do that in '76.
Wow.
And now I have grandkids from those players that are playing.
Wow.
So and those things, and there's quite a few businessmen in town that were on that team, and so there's the first football team at Florida State. There were 5 Bay High players on there that came from Bay High. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's a picture in the trophy case. I can't remember them all now. I'm getting older. I can't remember anything either. But no, that's it. But there's been some. I would say like the '93 Bay High team came in second. The I think it's '83, '84 Mosley team that came in there, and then the Rutherford had two of them in there. I think it was 98 and 98 or 97, somewhere in there.
Gotcha.
So, and then I think Mosley went a couple, almost 4 rounds 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So
I don't think that was too long ago. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So I mean, obviously, it's the cycle of the sports in the county.
Part of the problem, and this may sound like sour grapes, is there's so many high schools here now.
Yeah.
There's great talent on every team.
Mm-hmm.
But, when you go back, Bay High in 1925, Rutherford in '63, and then Mosley in '75, and then Arnold and Bozeman in 2000.
Yeah.
And I forgot when charter school from North Haven, 2000, maybe a little earlier than that.
Probably something like that.
So you've got 6 high schools, and there's not quite over 100 and something thousand people in the county.
Yeah.
So, I remember Rutherford, Bay, Mosley in the '90s. The field was packed. I mean, there was, it wasn't as many things to do. You didn't have all the technology now to play the games and all that. And so
True Friday night lights.
Yeah, you'll be there. And I know that we had the beach cable would even have them live, and you could video.
Nice.
They would video, and you could get copies for your kids and stuff like that. So
that's cool.
it was fantastic. Yeah,
it is cool. But yeah, I mean, and obviously the school of choice too is certainly makes it the talent kind of get funneled up into one area essentially. Yeah. So
there's different. It just seems like there's different areas for different sports.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too is the school of choice was not meant for athletics. It was meant for academics.
Yep. And it turned into a free agency.
It's kind of like the transfer portal and the NIL. So, but hey, it is what it is, and you have to live by it.
Yeah, no doubt. You can't change it, so you might as well embrace it and figure out
once
how
the
it
genie's out of the bottle, you can't. It's not going back.
You can't push it back in. That is for sure. One of the things that I've noticed, being involved in youth sports, I think I mentioned it just a few minutes ago, is, crazy parents, some coaches not coaching for the right reason, older players playing down a division. The game on the youth level, and we talked about it a little bit ago, is kind of become more about winning is the end all be all. And I've always thought if the kids are having fun and they're learning something, because sports and life are they're symbiotic, because good things are going to happen and bad things are going to happen, and it's how you deal with them. It's the resiliency and all that stuff. But, after this past weekend, I just saw some of the craziest behavior I've ever seen out of coaches, parents, and even the athletes on the field. And, as this kind of evolved in your career, was there ever a point where it wasn't as much as it is now? And I think you can probably attribute how we are now to the social media, all these things that, it's more about me instead of the team.
It's gotten a little bit, some of the things might have happened back then, but you didn't hear about them as much because it wasn't on the phone and didn't go all over the world.
Yep.
First thing is you have to tell kids their self-worth is not on that scoreboard.
Yeah.
You're an individual. God doesn't make any junk. Everybody is different. So what you have to do is you have to learn to respect the game. You have to respect the people you're playing, because when 2 teams play, not everybody wins. Somebody's going to lose. That doesn't mean the team you're playing doesn't practice as hard.
Yeah.
They don't have good coaches. Okay. So you have to learn to respect the game, respect your opponent, and you got to respect your teammates and yourself. So if you're acting up, you're representing a whole bunch of people. And so we always used to tell our kids, our players, and I always did too, somebody's watching you.
Yep.
No matter how old they are. They could be 5 or they could be 70. They're watching you, and it's just human nature for older generation people to watch your behavior.
Yeah, your attitude,
Yeah,
your
and
body
so,
language.
and you're wearing this jersey or whatever, you're out there, you got this brand
You're
on.
representing something
Yeah,
bigger than
and
yourself.
so, yeah, the people that came before you and the people that are going to come after you. So what happens is some people, and I'm not everybody, I'm not saying, there's some great coaches out there and there's some fantastic parents, but they live vicariously through their kids. And so, every kid is not going to be a D1 athlete.
Very few.
So what is wrong with having fun and being part of a team and being part of a school and getting something out of that? Because the lessons you learn in these sports are going to carry on through your life, because you can play the best you can possibly play and you may not win.
Absolutely.
So you may be up for a promotion and you may be the smartest one there, but you don't actually get it. So how do you react to those situations? And so what happens with that is, if you didn't learn those lessons, even though you played, as you get older and you have kids, you're still a little upset because, and I'm not trying to be a psychologist, I just see sometimes they're trying to say, okay, I didn't do very well, but I want to make sure my kid does better, and he's going to be the athlete that I wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay, instead of saying you're doing good, and and it's nothing wrong with telling the truth. If you didn't play well, you don't want to kill them on it, but you just say, look, that probably wasn't your best game, but you know what, you got another game coming up, or let's practice a little harder, let's do something else, instead of just browbeating them down and say, or we beat you. If you're in it long enough, coaching, playing, you're going to be on the top end of it, and you're going to be on the bottom end of it. It's so inevitable. Just remember those feelings and those sort of things. And then, officiating, refereeing, umpiring, whatever you want to call it, it's hard to keep people because of what's happening now.
About to dive into that,
Yeah, because, when I was playing in high school, I would have never thought of saying anything to the official, or never saying anything back to my coach except yes, sir, or yes, ma'am, whoever it was.
We've lost that in this day and age.
Yeah, because when, I remember going home being mad at my coach. My dad goes, so what did you do to make him mad? And not, well, I'm going to go up there and talk to him because, I know you didn't do anything wrong. So when you get on some officials, they don't have time to do things what you think they're doing. I know I call high school and junior college basketball. And I was in my 40s and 50s, and I don't have time to think about it. Boy, if I call this one, this team's going to win. It's moving so fast. I'm chasing 16 to 22-year-olds up and down the floor. I don't have time to worry about, you just call what you see.
Yeah, you're reacting.
And so sometimes I don't exactly agree with the call that I see, but I understand why they might have made it. And I'm just trying to give them some leeway. Now, when I was coaching, did I get on a little bit? Yeah. Okay, but I didn't go to the extent that I wanted to fight anybody.
Yeah.
And then sometimes every once in a while they'll calm you down, because I remember one time, I have to tell you this, when I was coaching the JV team, and we was first and goal from the 2. By the time they got through me, it's first and goal from the 47. And I was sitting in the stands. So the famous words was, how do I smell from here, coach? But that's as far as, you go, because that's it. But now, that because we see what happens on TV, or we see these things, and now with AI, you can see all kind of things. The people decide, okay, I've had enough of this guy. I'm going to go out there and, or they abuse them when they're going to their vehicle. That's why now we have to have police escorts to and from. Yeah, because you can't afford it. And then if you're in the state playing and something happens to one of these officials, man, you're talking about start writing a check, because it's going to go, and you may be banned from playing that sport for a few games. So that's the sort of thing. And, and then the other thing is, we have great coaches here. I've seen some great ones that really teach the game. But when you go to these, say, AAU, whether it's basketball or soccer is my favorite, because this happens in soccer. You're playing with an all-star team, and you're playing in this big tournament, okay, and you get these trophies and you get these rings and everything. You get a red card in soccer. you're out. Okay. Well, the next game in this travel ball, as far as I know, you can come back in and play. Well, in high school, you're going to be sitting out 5 or 6 games, and the bidding starts at $250. And we put it in. We used to put it in our bylaws in all the sports that the parents pay that, because here's what happens: the football player gets ejected, costs $250. Okay, so a soccer player gets ejected. Guess what? That's not $250. That's $500 because somebody before you got ejected at that school. And so it just carries over.
Yeah.
Well, Bay High, in 1993, we won the Sportsmanship Award for 4A football for not having any ejections, anything, okay, and treating the officials correctly, treating the hospitality for, not saying we didn't do it all those years before that. Well, we had officials and people. Then we just got it when I came back AD in 22-23, we got it again. You have to, being a former official, you have to know how to treat those guys. They got to have, I always have them something to eat. If they're supposed to get paid by us, they had to check when they came in. I had somebody that was always made sure they were secure, and they had a separate dressing place from where everybody was.
Yeah.
Those are kind of the things you have to look at.
Well, and some of the things you said there, respect was one of the words that really stuck out to me. And obviously, teaching the game and how it correlates to life is a big part of that, because you can't just go out in the real world and act like that. You're not going to go very far.
And, it's nice to win.
Yeah.
And it's nice to win a lot, but that's not all there is to it.
No, that's not the reason why you play.
No, and so, and again, we get back to what's wrong with being just a basketball player or a soccer player or a baseball player and go through high school, and then if you don't play again in college, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
You've had that experience. Some of those people make the best coaches.
Yep.
Because they know how it is when you're not the best and you're not, but you're a good player, you're coachable, you just do the best you can, and you know what, it works out pretty good.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
That's what I always tell my kids is if you played as hard as you possibly could and you left everything out on the field, whatever it says on the scoreboard really doesn't matter, because you know in your heart you couldn't have done anything more than you did. Effort, attitude, all that stuff.
Playing sports and coaching sports, when you're look at the scoreboard. People look at the scoreboard and want to know whether winning or losing is the most important thing. Well, do you go to the bank? Is there a thing up there, this guy made this loan and that loan? Do they keep a scoreboard of how many loans? How about a used car salesman or thing? Do they keep a score for that? I don't run down there and tell the used car guys, look, you didn't talk to that guy, right? If you'd have said this, you could have sold that car.
Yeah.
But guess what? How many times do they come to tell coaches, well, you should have done this, you should have done that?
Yeah. Hindsight.
If you're out there with those kids every day, you know who can do this, who can do what.
Yep.
Let the coach make the decision.
Let the coach.
Yeah. And I don't care how many trophies you get. As you get older, when I was growing up, when I was in Little League, I was the same size as everybody else. Guess what? They all passed me. But, yep. So that doesn't, things change. But you have to keep trying harder and do the best you can do. That's all you can do. And the parents need to understand. Ask your kid how he feels instead of you getting all janked out of shape about he's not playing as much.
And if that's what you harp on as a parent, that's what your kids are going to think is important. And then that's going to show up with their respect to the officials, the other players, the coaches, whatever it may be. And it's a very, very slippery slope.
Coaching is emotional.
Very.
And playing is emotional.
Very, yeah.
So right after the game, it's not the time to discuss something. I mean, discuss now, not criticize or yell or, they should be firing you or my son's not playing. He's the best one out there. That's not the time.
No.
Okay. And so, there's a way to approach people and I know my dad did not even like my high school basketball coach. He never said a word, but at the end of the year, he told me, he said, well, you won in spite of him. So that's the only thing he ever said to me. He never criticized the guy,
Yep.
but you gotta, there's a way to do it. And, if you, it's kind of like parenting. If you go through a divorce and you badmouth the one that you left, then you're going to build up this this hatred, and you can't do that. You can't go into the game thinking, I don't like the coach, I don't like the officials, I don't like the other team we're playing. Now, there can be a rivalry, and you can play as hard as you want to play.
Yep.
But after it's over, you still got to live in this town.
Yeah.
And you still got to see those people. So,
Good point. For sure. For sure.
So, anyway, that's just kind of my take on it.
I like it. I like it. That's good. I mean, and getting back to the officials, if we don't have officials, we're not playing games.
That's
so you better, respect. I mean, that's probably youth sports maybe, on the way to a crisis if, behavior is still the same way and the officials just say, you know what, I don't have time. I don't want to have to deal with this. And then what do? Then we're not playing games.
Well, yeah, because I know in some Little League baseball, you have older kids like high school baseball players that try to call.
Yeah.
And so if they're just harassed all the time, they're not going to call. And there's your people that are growing up to get the experience to move on up.
Yeah.
And so you don't have those. And so who do you get? And if you think it's easy, you need to get out there and try it. Yeah. So.
Because it certainly isn't, because, everybody sees everything different. And like you were saying with basketball, you're making reactionary calls.
Right.
And you don't have time to really process, the magnitude of the situation, et cetera, et cetera. But you're supposed to call the calls you see, right?
Right. That's correct.
And everybody's got the technology now to slow it down, to look at it. They can zoom in. Everybody's videoing at games now, regardless of what it is.
You can. What's really funny is like if you're playing, especially if you're playing in the playoffs in basketball, this crowded gym, you blow the whistle, and there's just dead silence. If you call one way, just half the gym screaming, yelling at you, the other half's cheering.
Yep.
So it just
it's that damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah. So I used to tell them, Coach, I've heard enough about that call. If you give me 5 more minutes, I'll screw something else up, and you can yell at me on that.
Yeah. Oh goodness.
But yeah, we don't. If we keep criticizing and getting after them, then you're not going to have them.
Yep.
And you can't get experience. You just can't start out calling the championship football game or the basketball game or the baseball game.
Yeah.
Without any experience.
Work the way up through the ranks.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure. All right. Final question before we get Keith Flemming on the line. This again may be a tough one. What was the favorite team you coached, if you have one?
Ooh, gosh.
I know, because there's been a lot.
There's been a lot. I guess for me in football, it was the 93 state runner-up. We went into that game after going 4-6. And the year before that, before Coach Scroggins got there, I think we were like 1-9 or something like that. And so we met in the summer, and half the kids that we thought we were going to play just said, Coach, I'm working. I can't be there this summer to lift weights. And we were like, oh, my gosh, here we go. So then we just started out, and we lost 3 games that year. We lost to Mosley in a rainstorm, 13-12. They kicked a field goal with I don't know how many seconds on the clock. Have to give them credit. It was muddy, and they kicked it in the rain. It was great. And then we got beat by Mosley the last game of the year to determine the district champions. I think it was 19-7. We were going to score to make it 13-12, and then they knocked the ball out of the quarterback's hand and picked it up and ran all the way back. So, and then we lost the state championship game to Braden Southeast 20-17. And
it's funny how these memories just kind of stick, and you remember very specific details when it comes to those.
I guess the basketball game was a 2004-2003 team that went to the state playoff.
Nice.
The Final Four.
Wow, that's impressive. Because I know on the basketball side of things, I don't think we've had anybody go real far in a long time. I know Rutherford girls there for a little while were
Coach Mills had gone in '93. He went to the Final Four for Rutherford.
Nice. Seems like Rutherford's had a lot of really, really good basketball teams.
They have, yeah. Coach Ross went also.
Keith, you on there?
Yes, sir.
How are you doing today?
Oh, not too bad. How you doing?
Doing all right. Hanging in there like a hair in a biscuit, which was a Southern term I learned when I first came down to the South. I'm going to ask you a question to start us off, Keith. Because this is a tough one for me. I can't really figure it out yet. Who is the best team in the NFL right now? After 5 weeks, and we have nobody that is undefeated anymore. I think this is the earliest it's been in a long time.
I would still argue in the NFC, it's the Philadelphia Eagles, and in the AFC, it's the Buffalo Bills. The Bills have such an easy schedule. I think they're going to get home field. I understand they just lost a game at home, but they rarely do. And I think if they get home field throughout the playoffs, they're going to have a great chance to make it to the Super Bowl. And then the Eagles, it's ugly. And that was obviously a terrible loss
Mm-hmm.
to Denver. But it's a really good, like, just strong team that I
Denver's
think they're going to
defense is
eventually.
fantastic.
Yep, and they're gonna get, I think, Barkley going
Yeah.
eventually. That's been the big difference. But I mean, the fact is they've played really five bad games and they're 4-1, and I
Yep.
think that says more than anything the strength of their team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, like we said, through 5 weeks in the NFL season already, as quick as it comes, as quick as it starts to go. What are some of the stats? I know we always start with some fun stats from the previous week and all that good stuff.
So I apologize if there's any Jets fans out there because
There's actual
they're the
Jet
only team
fans.
now without a win through the first 5 weeks of the NFL season. And this is not to kick a team when they're down, but just these stats are wild. Justin Fields, who is one of my favorite fantasy QBs, I recommended him again this week to much success. But he is now 0-26 for his career as a starter when the team he's facing scores 21 points or more. Um,
Oh,
there's a
and
lot of factors that go
26.
into
That's
that.
wild.
You know, there's a lot of factors that go into it, right? Like I don't want to just say, well, that's all Justin Fields is bad,
Yeah.
stat, but it's not good, right? Like I think under any circumstances, being 0-26, basically if the team scores three touchdowns, that's not great. But the more surprising thing for this Jets is a lot of people thought we would get with Aaron Glenn, defensive minded coach in New York, a bounce back. This is a Jets team that we're just 2 years removed from being one of the best defenses in the NFL. But now they are the first team since they started keeping the turnover stat in 1933 to go 5 games to start their season without creating or forcing one turnover. That is unreal. That's almost 100 years. And there's been some really bad defenses. I'm an Atlanta Falcons fan. I'm aware of a bunch of them just right there. But they've at least created one turnover. The Jets have zero turnovers their first 5 games.
That's wild. I mean, a few years, what, 1, 2 years removed from Salah being gone,
Yeah.
who's
And I
obviously
mean that
a great
yeah,
defensive coach.
yep, you're well aware of it more than anybody. So we'll see what happens with them. Something that I've been really trying to make the case the last couple of years with you and just people in general is we're learning that a quarterback situation has so much to do with their success rate. And it was kind of cool to see in Seattle for that Bucks Seahawks game, two QBs that most people considered busts, right? The number one and number two pick
Yep.
in the 2018 class. And yet, Darnold and Baker, starting in the second quarter, they traded touchdown drives on 9 of 10 possessions, with the two QBs combining for only 6 incompletions in that stretch. And Baker became the first quarterback ever in the history of the regular season to throw for 375 yards or more with less than 5 incompletions. Both guys are playing at an outrageous rate. Sam Darnold is completing like 90% of his deep throws. And again, Baker Mayfield seems to lead a game winning drive every week. It's just remarkable. These guys, again, were not only considered busts, their teams that drafted them just threw them to the trash, right? Threw
Yeah.
them to the curb.
The Browns and the
And
Jets, and they've overcome so much having to go there for the start of their
and how's
careers.
the QB situation worked out for those two franchises since then? So,
Really well.
uh, again, I think that just makes a case that so much of this is you know the people around them, right? It's no different than if you're born into a family that's very loving and educated and everything. Obviously, it's a much better situation for that person. to have a good upbringing and, get into a good school and all that stuff. We're seeing the same thing now with, these quarterbacks that if you go to a bad situation, it's just so difficult. Mac Jones is another example, right, Ryan? Like we've seen
Yeah,
how great he's been with Shanahan and the Niners. And I mean, it was so bad at the end of New England. People just assumed,
they wrote him
well, they
off.
just whiffed,
Yep.
right? Yeah, he's just a bad QB. Speaking of the New England Patriots, goodness gracious, this makes me sick because, come on, man, the Patriots, you've had enough. You had the greatest quarterback of all time, but they have the next big thing.
Yep.
Drake May is here and he's for real, Ryan. Obviously, they had that huge win at Buffalo, which again, nobody wins at Buffalo anymore. And May completed 8 of 10 passes that traveled 10 plus air yards. He has the highest completion percentage in the NFL on those throws, almost 69%. What's impressive is he does it a lot. He's 33 of 48 on the season. Just to kind of show you how good that is, the league average is like 48%, and he's completing basically 70% of those throws. May was so good in the second half, completing 13 of 14 passes for 184 yards. The throw to Diggs, did you see that on the sideline? Like
Yeah.
basically the game. Oh my God, that's just sick. And now he has become the youngest quarterback ever in the history of the NFL to go 4 straight games where he completed 70% of his passes and threw for more than 200 plus passing yards. This is for real. Because I keep reminding people New England does not have like a top notch offensive line. New England does not
No,
have
not
a
even
good
close.
running game. New England, I mean, Stephon Diggs looked really good, but I don't even know if you can argue they have an alpha wide receiver. And yet Drake May is already doing all this stuff. And what's most impressive about May and why it's, I think, more likely to last than Caleb and Jaden Daniels, who have also been really good both this season and, to start their careers. He's not really running. Like, I think we're seeing New England, they've got it into his head that, like, look, dude, you have this unbelievable athletic ability. And like Patrick Mahomes, there's going to be times you're going to have to use it, right? But let's save that because you're so gifted as a passer for, in case of emergency, break glass. And he's not running. Last year, he was one of the quarterbacks that was running the most in the NFL. If you look at how many times he would take off per drop back, et cetera, this year it's one of the lowest rates, and their offense is just really good. I'm in awe of Drake May, and it's just, another New England Patriots. It can only happen to them. 3 quarterbacks selected, right? In the first 3 picks. A lot of people said, man, too bad for New England. They didn't get Daniels. They didn't get Williams. Well, the guy they got looks like right now he's the best of the bunch.
Yeah, no doubt. His passing ability is fantastic. Now, he play his rookie year, or did he, they take a little while for him to start? I can't remember that or not.
May played the last like 9 or 10
That's right.
games.
He got put in.
They did wait a little bit, and I think that's my dad made that point the other day that it does appear NFL teams are starting to realize you can't just throw these guys to the
No.
wolves if it's going to be a disaster,
Yeah.
right? Like, and it's not even on them, but if like they're getting that internal clock we talk about all the time,
It's
right, Ryan?
faster
That
for
like,
these young guys because they don't,
yes, it is.
and you take a couple big hits early in your career, and all of a sudden you get a little bit more jittery, and you start not processing as fast as you need to, and then you start making mistakes. And I think that's why May was running more last year than he's doing this year, is because he had to get used to the speed of the NFL. And to your point, a lot of these guys, they're top picks out of college, so they go to crappy teams, and then and unless you have a resurgence like Baker and Darnold did, you end up, dealing with some pretty tough stuff, and it ends up putting the franchise back a little bit. So it seems like there is a formula, and some teams want to follow it and some teams don't. But like you just said, I think you're seeing more teams, following kind of the Jordan Love playbook, so to speak.
Yeah, understanding these are assets, right? And you just can't gamble with them. You have to be sure, and it's okay if they have to sit and watch. I mean, Dylan Gabriel is another example, right,
Yep,
with
he looked
Cleveland, where
great.
Flacco looked awful, but they waited, right? They
Yeah,
waited 5 weeks to where I think he, had gotten comfortable being an NFL quarterback. And to your point, he did. He looked really good, much better than Joe Flacco had. And that running back they got, Jukins, is just Oh
Yeah,
my God,
Quinshon
like he
Judkins. Yeah.
is, there's metrics that he's going to be outrageous. I do want to just mention Puka real quick as well, because, I know they suffered that shocking loss to your Niners Thursday night.
That
Thanks
was
for eliminating.
shocking to me as well. I was telling everybody Thursday on the show, bet the Rams big, bet them big, bet them big, bet them big. And then I was at football practice and I saw it was 14-0 after the jump, and I was like, what is happening? And then
Well,
Matt
they
Jones.
eliminated my eliminator, Ryan, which I'm not happy about that. But it was another game where Puka scored a touchdown and caught 10 plus
Yeah.
passes. If you remember, all summer, I was saying that if Matthew Stafford stayed healthy this season, I really was confident Puka was going to emerge as the best wide receiver in football. And that's exactly what's happened, even with the team adding Devontae Adams in the offseason, which that concerned me a little bit for my take, right? Was
Yeah.
obviously
It's not going to
adding a
pull
player
any
like
targets
that.
away. I think it's done the
And it
opposite,
hasn't.
actually.
It's opened it up exactly because Puka 35% target share, the highest in the NFL. His 39% of the Matthew Stafford's air yard share is like I think third in the NFL, and then just the 26.8 fantasy points per game and PPR formats. And it's really cool. Fantasy points has started and I love this, wins above replacement
There's war in football
stat
now.
for fantasy. Yeah, for fantasy only, not like
Yeah.
actual NFL games. I think it's too hard to quantify.
Yeah.
And no surprise, Puka Nakua and CMC right now are the only two guys with two or higher wins above replacement. And remember, we're only 5 games into the season, so
Yeah.
two wins above replacement for 5 games is pretty substantial. And then I spent the beginning of these stats picking on Jets fans. So let's go a little, glass half full here. And I hate that we didn't get together last week because I had my best week of DFS plays and I needed it. I've been off to a slow start. But one of the guys I was really recommending was Mason Taylor, their rookie tight end from LSU. And your DFS lineups, he was only 2,800 this last week. Um, he only saw 3 targets the first 2 games of this season and then had a breakout in week 3, but that was with Tyrod Taylor. So kind of difficult to know, is that more of because they were throwing a lot more with Tyrod Taylor, or is this him kind of emerging? We now know this is him emerging because now 2 games with Justin Fields, he's seen 19 targets in those 2 games, caught 14 passes for 132 yards. And it's exactly what I said this summer. I just didn't see any other pass catchers other than Garrett Wilson that,
Yeah. There
were
had
going
to
to
be
get a
another one.
sizable portion, right? And he was a top 55 draft pick. So they spent capital on a very talented dude. And, that's a little glass half full for Jets fans. And then let's end the stats with this one real quick. Saquon Barkley had, maybe the greatest running back season of all time last year. I had some concerns, and I think we talked about this a few weeks ago, Ryan, that, there's that magic 400 plus touches
Yeah.
for running backs in a season, and we see consistently a decline after that. And through 5 weeks, thanks to fantasy points data, we can say that's kind of happening with him. Barkley is currently only averaging 3.22 yards per carry. That's 29th among backs. Last year, he averaged almost 6 yards per carry at 5.8.
Yeah. That season
His
was
ex,
insane.
Right, his explosive run rate, that's a rush of 10 yards or more, 2.4% this year. Last year, it was 7%. And then missed tackles per attempt, he's 31st among running backs after last year, ranking 7th. Now, again, there's a lot of factors to this. The Philadelphia's offense is a mess. New OC. Kellen Moore is a really good play caller, but it is concerning seeing, especially the explosive rate, because you would think that they would still, he'd be busting these big runs, and he's just
He's just
not. And
not.
that
Yeah.
is going to be the key to what you asked me to start this is who do I think is still, the Super Bowl favorite? I would think the Eagles are still the team, just because they're the deepest team in football. But if they don't get Barkley going like last year, we've seen like Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback, not a great quarterback, but he definitely cannot, carry this team, this offense to back-to-back Super Bowl titles. They're going to need Saquon Barkley to be at least 75, 80% of the guy he was last year. And right now, that's just not the case.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And obviously, on the wide receiver side of things, A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are both kind of complaining like little kids about their target share and that kind of stuff and just not getting the ball, which that's a culture thing to me. And it just, I don't know, AJ Brown, wherever he's been, he's always kind of had some kind of qualm with his quarterbacks or the play callers or whatever it may be. But, Philly keeps turning and burning their coordinators. And I think, on the offensive side, it seems to be catching up to him a little bit this year.
I completely agree. And let's not forget that their head coach is not really an X and O guy, and
No,
that's a
he's a
big
culture
deal,
guy.
right? Like, and that's what a lot of very successful Pete Carroll, had a great run in Seattle. Pete Carroll's not really an X and O guy, but
Mm.
if you're able to be the CEO and surround yourself with really smart people calling those plays, it's great. But you know, Vic Fangio on the defensive side, the Eagles don't have these issues, right?
Yep.
The offensive side, to your point, again, Kellen Moore, a lot of people complained about him. They won a Super Bowl with him.
Yeah.
Really good play caller. And I think now, you see how much they miss him,
Hell, even the Saints won last week.
right?
Yes. All right, Keith,
Uh,
let's go through your official lineup real quick.
You got it. So again, please be sure to check out all my work on
Changes
fantasysixpack.net.
often.
Last week was just a smash week, thanks to guys like Rico Dotto, who I had, it's a lock, and so good week. But the QBs this week, it's hard to avoid playing QBs facing the Ravens and Cowboys right now. This week, Matthew Stafford, 6,400s facing the Ravens. Bryce Young, 4,800s facing the Cowboys. If you look at fantasy points per game strictly from passing this season, Stafford leads the league with 20 points per game, followed by your boy, Mac Jones and Jared Goff. However, quarterbacks facing the Cowboys are averaging 22.2 fantasy points per game through the air, and quarterbacks facing the Ravens are averaging 20.8 fantasy points per game through the air. So think about that. There is no quarterback in the NFL scoring more points per game through the pass than the team, just the QBs that are playing the Ravens and the Cowboys. No surprise, Dallas and Baltimore ranked 31st and 32nd in points allowed on DraftKings. And I love Stafford. Like, it's a great matchup. Don't get me wrong. But when Bryce is $1,600 cheaper, and then you had the added caveat that the Cowboys lead the NFL in yards per game on offense. They score a lot of points. And we saw with Justin Fields on Sunday
And
why
they got
that's a
into a
good
shootout.
thing in fantasy, right? Like, they were done. And I was really upset because I once again had Justin Fields in 100% of lineups and thought it was week 2 going into the fourth quarter. He had basically no points and he ended up with 25.92 points, almost all of them coming in the fourth. So you have that advantage. The running backs this week, like, I'm not going to argue with CMC at 8,400 or Jonathan Taylor at 8,500. CMC's averaging almost 20 points per game just as a receiver this season. And Jonathan Taylor has scored 3 times in each of the last 2 easy Colts wins, which I think that's going to be the case against Arizona again this week. But again, like, Jacobs is almost $1,000 cheaper. And he's facing a Bengals defense that is just really
Atrocious.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jacobs scored double digits in every game this season, averaging 20 rush attempts per. Opportunity is king. And most importantly, what I really like to see from him, he's caught 4+ passes in each of the last 2 games, seeing 13 targets. That's something Jacobs is not known for. Again, the Bengals allow 130 yards per game on the ground at over 4 yards per carry, 6 rushing touchdowns. I think Jacobs is a smash play. Hassan Haskins is the other guy I want to mention, 5K. The Chargers' season from hell just continues. Or Marion Hampton is the latest guy to land on IR. They've already lost Najee Harris. That opens up an opportunity for both Haskins and second-year man Kamini Vidal. But I think Haskins is going to get the main opportunity. He played in college under Harbaugh. Now, there's obviously concern Miami could get up early, right? And Haskins is not really a pass-catching back. But if they don't, just remember, Rico Dotto last week, another one of my locks, 206 yards on 23 carries. Miami for the season is now allowing 170 yards per game at an absurd 5.6 yards per carry. So, I mean, just about any back facing the Dolphins is a good decision. The wide receivers, JSN 7,600. Again, Puka, if you can find the 1,100 to play him at 8,700, by all means play him. But JSN for $1,000 cheaper with a 30% target share, accounting for 50% of Sam Darnold's air yards and averaging almost 22 fantasy points per game on DK. And again, that air yards is really encouraging because Darnold's
And they
completing
don't really have
86%.
anybody else on their team that Darnold's throwing to.
They don't. I will say though, if Cooper Cup is out there and you're in a PPR league, he is starting to see a significant portion of targets. It's actually like if you look at the shares, we obviously know that JSN's getting 30% of them. Cooper's up to 20%, and it's
Wow.
actually like closer to 25% the last 3 games. I don't know if he's going to be able to turn it into it, but again, opportunity volume is gold in fantasy, and you could see him starting to put together some good games, but again, like Darnold's deep throw completion percentage, 86%, 17% higher than anybody else in the NFL. This is a Jags D that's allowing 250 yards per game through the air. And just in the last 2 games, 7 different pass catchers have caught a pass of 20 plus yards. The other guy, Ted McMillan, 6K. If you're playing
Rookie of the year,
Bryce,
offensive
you will.
rookie of the year. Calling it now.
Well, what about Jukins?
Quinshon Judkins. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's on the Browns. Do they ever give awards to people on the Browns?
Touche. Touche. I can't argue with that point at all. Uh, but if you're playing Bryce, you want to play his favorite target, right? McMillan is 7th in targets, 16th in target share on a team throwing it 39 times per game. That's the 6th highest pass rate in the NFL. The big thing, Dallas plays zone at the highest rate in the NFL. McMillan is averaging over 1 fantasy point per target when facing zone. In Dallas's last 4 games, number 1 receivers have caught 24 passes with 7
That makes my heart
touchdowns.
happy.
So that's good news, right? And then for the tight end, hello, David Njoku. Where you been? 3,500. One of my biggest disappointments and misses this summer. He had such a history with Flacco. I just assumed he was going to come out like a gangbuster. It's been the opposite, right? But luckily, they made a change, and it immediately benefited Njoku. Dylan Gabriel started his
Those
first
tight ends
game,
are always huge for rookie quarterbacks. They're usually your easy
right? You
check
got to
down
have
in
that
your
safety
comfort
valve.
zone. Yep.
I, look at you, Ryan. You've been doing this DFS and fantasy thing with me too long now when you're talking about that. Forget
See,
about
you
for
think I don't
success. We're
pay
just looking
attention,
for
but I
fantasy
do.
points.
But I do. I
No,
do.
that's Jay, in fairness, I think's not
Yeah,
paying attention. I
that's
know
true.
you're
He
paying
doesn't pay
attention.
attention to anything. Class of 99, Griffin, lowest
Uh,
SAT scores in the country. I always bring that up.
Well, we can't all be truck drivers, but Njoku, most snaps of the season in London in Gabriel's first game, 67 of 70. No surprise, saw his most targets, had his most receptions, most receiving yards, first touchdown of the season, first fantasy or highest fantasy performance. And then what I really love is Stefanski was bragging on Njoku's blocking after the game, which obviously, if he's doing a good job blocking, he's going to be on the field more, and that's going to give him more opportunities in the pass game. And to your point, Ryan, what you were just saying about rookie QBs loving tight ends, 39% of Gabriel's 33 pass attempts in his debut went to tight ends, either Njoku or Fannin. And they're facing a Steelers D this week who's allowed 14 receptions for 155 yards and 3 scores in their last 3 games. So I think Njoku is a very safe play at 3,500.
Yeah, absolutely. I like those, as I always do, and I'm glad you kind of got going last week. But again, everybody, if you want to win some money in DraftKings, FanDuel, whatever it is, I know these prices are off of DraftKings, so just check out all of Keith's information. You can check him out on Twitter/X at KEITHFLEMMING. And of course, you can also head over to fantasy6pack.net. He's got all his cheat sheets, all the stuff. But again, this is just, pretty much day one of working on lineups. So I know they change a little bit throughout the week, so you want to make sure you're paying attention to all his stuff. Did I cover it all there, Keith, for you?
Man, it was like you were doing it for me. Ryan, I've been thinking about you a lot,
Appreciate
buddy.
it. Appreciate it. We're hanging
You
in
know
there.
that you're in my thoughts and prayers, and you're the man. So always enjoy talking sports with you, and I hope you have a great day, buddy.
You too, Keith. Appreciate you coming on as always. Keith Flemming, ladies and gentlemen. Keith, have a great day. Did want to ask you a little bit about your Florida State Seminoles. Where do they stand in your mind? Obviously, had a big win to start the season, but a tough opponent this past week in Miami, who a lot of people are saying they're one of the top teams in the country right now. Where do they kind of go from here?
Well, I guess the old adage is the only way they can go is up. But they didn't have, as they started out, and then they have a whole new offensive line. They have a whole new coaching staff.
Yeah.
And so, they're a work in progress. The thing is, you can't give up on them. I mean, they already have 3 wins. They only won 2 last year, so that's an improvement. That's not what you want to hear, but you can't just jump out back to 13-0.
No.
Miami is a good team. I tell you what, though, we had some spurts there the first drive, and then they adjusted. But then I think, to me, watching him roll out and either throw it or run it kind of reminded me of when they started working with Charlie Ward on the shotgun kind of thing. So I think they're going to go up. I think they got some improvement to do. And, we turned the ball over, 2 interceptions to 3 fumbles. So, you have to be positive.
Yeah.
First of all, they're not going to get rid of Norville. They're just not going to do it. They're going to give, they gave him the big contract. Did they jump the gun a little bit, 13-0, and they gave him a contract? Well, Alabama was searching too, so
kind of had to lock people.
in. He wasn't the only one. There were a lot of people got locked in. So I think they're going to do better, and I think to play Miami at the rate they're going, and if you want to look at the money, okay, they have a $4 million quarterback. We have an $800,000 quarterback. So I mean, but
pay for what you get, right?
Well, yeah, kind of. But the thing is, he's going to be a winner. I think he's going to go ahead. I think calling some of the plays, you can't get rid of Malzahn because I think he does a good job. It just gives another perspective.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're good for the defense we have. Somebody wants to go back to the 4-3 and all that. I think you need to let him do what he needs to do and let the kids adjust to it. And if he finds out they can't adjust, then go back.
Yeah.
But they are recruiting some kids that are going to fit their system. And then, they've had some flips from other schools, even though they're only 3-2, they want to come to Florida State. So
then kind of see what the path is going.
Yeah, I think they're going to be positive things going forward. If we end up 9-3, will we be in the playoffs? Probably not.
But still a great season.
Still a great season. You'll be in a bowl game. But here's the thing: the SEC and the Big Ten are the big conference guys because they have ties with, ESPN and all that. So those are the ones that are going to get the most looked at.
Yeah.
Most when we lost the first game to Virginia in double overtime, we went from 8 to 18. Okay, that's a 10-spot jump. Okay, and then you had a 2-2 Notre Dame who was way down and almost in the top 10. So I don't know. I think they're going to do good. I just think you got to hold on and not jump off the ship so soon.
Well, it's kind of like we were talking before with youth sports. People are so quick to we need to make a change. We need to make a change. But what's that change going to do?
Yeah, who's out there? Who's
Who
out
are you going to go get?
Right.
And, is it actually going to make you better, or are you going to put it?
And Malzahn's already said he doesn't want to be a head coach.
Yeah, so. I think he's found his spot there as an offensive coordinator.
And again, this is, they didn't get to work together all, like a month before they started the season, Yeah. I think now it's, you're going to have ups and downs. That's just the way it is. So Notre Dame lost the first 2 games of the year.
Yep.
All right. So
now they're cruising.
Right. And then Alabama lost Florida State. So now they beat Georgia and they beat Vanderbilt. So, that only helps us. That that gives us a win, but people go, that's not the same Alabama team. Well, I mean,
apparently it is. They just went into Athens and beat Georgia.
Right. So anyway, we'll see. I think they're going to improve. I just think we got to give them a little time.
Just stay patient. Is the moral
absolutely,
of that story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Real quick before we end our show today, I did want to talk about some of the Friday Night Light scores from last Friday. I've obviously already mentioned the Arnold 28-21 win over Walton. Both teams now 2-4. Mosley was on a bye last week, and then Choctaw played South Walton and beat them 38-6. Choctaw is now 7-0, looking like one of the powerhouses in our area, right there with Bluntstown. Pensacola Catholic beat Destin 45-0. Graceville continues to keep Vernon winless with a 42-15 victory. Port St. Joe came in last Friday and beat Rutherford 54-20. Coach Floyd still got that one win on the season. Obviously, we'll talk about the games coming up Friday night on our Thursday show. Coach, I really appreciate you coming in.
You got it. We left out North Bay Haven's last-second field goal.
Oh, yes.
That was a district win for them.
That was Thursday night, right?
Yeah, it was. But, yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Field goal walk-off.
Yep, it was. And, I talked to Andy, and he said the guy had some trouble with extra points. But you know what? When it's your turn to shine, it's your turn.
Hey. Every challenge is
and
an opportunity.
That was a district win for them.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, they get, 2 more district wins?
2 more district wins.
And they're right where they need to be?
Yeah. So
good stuff there for the Buccaneers. Good to see them doing, better because obviously their program's been in some
well, they've
turmoil.
had 5 coaches in 5 years.
Yeah, that's tough for anybody, especially on
Tornadoes
the kids.
go to West Florida this Friday, and they if they win, they'll be district champs.
Wow.
So
good stuff there for Coach Brown.
Yep.
And I forget who Mosley is hosting this week.
I hadn't looked. I usually on this other radio station I do, but I'm out of town this week. I'm going to Springfield, Tennessee to watch one of my buddies coach, and they're going to win in the playoffs. If they win, they'll be in the playoffs. So
that's awesome.
So
very, very cool. Yeah, maybe is it a Thursday night game? It must be a Thursday night game. Mosley at South Walt. Oh, no, that's volleyball. I apologize. Yeah, it is a Thursday. Oh, I should have known this because it's that big rivalry game. But it's not at home. It's over there across the bridge in Niceville where they'll take on the Niceville Eagles.
Ooh.
That Mosley-Niceville rivalry is a good one.
It is. And, especially with Tommy Joe being from over there.
Yep, absolutely. Just adds a little extra.
Choctaw would have known Niceville, too.
Yeah, Choctaw's the real deal.
They are. And of course, they've done the little NIL like.
Yep.
We won't mention the Tigers in Bluntstown, but we won't mention those. But anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Coach, I appreciate you coming on. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you.
And let's do it again sometime.
We will. So, got to get you out there and swinging the club every once in a while.
It's been a hot minute, and now that I got this backpack on me all the time, it may be a long time before I hit
Well,
the
I may be
links
able
again.
to beat you then. This has to be the only way.
Nah, you never know. You never know.
So.
Well, that was episode number 15. The legendary Coach Glenn Manley joined us today. We'll be back on Thursday. Jay will be joining me, and then the president of the Beach Marlins Youth Football and Cheer Organization, Donnie Walker, will be joining us as well. Y'all have a great rest of your Tuesday, and we will see you on Thursday.